So today we have a flash talk with the University of Southern Queensland, and the topic is restarting research and universities post-COVID. The COVID-19 pandemic has arguably changed our society as we continue to adapt to the new normal of social distancing, restricted travel, and increasingly uncertain economic outlook. For research universities, as the start of the academic semester begins or has begun, the effects of the pandemic are only just becoming fully apparent. Uncertainty remains regarding international students, social distancing measures on campus, and potential impacts for funding and research agendas. Today's flash talk will focus on how research universities will be restarting research in a post-COVID world. Joining me today is Professor Ren Yi, Pro Vice-Chancellor International at the University of Southern Queensland. Professor Yi is a very renowned academic scholar and has also been the president of the Australian Research Management Society. University of Southern Queensland is a young university, but very active. I'm truly delighted to have you for this discussion, Ren.
Thank you, Anders. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owner of the land and pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. And this is, as you mentioned, during the pandemic period, and when we do discovery, we always reflect our first people, our Indigenous Australians, how their knowledge to impact on Australian researchers and Australian institutions for the further future discovery. So I would like to acknowledge our first people, Indigenous Australians, before I start the program. I think the pandemic is really have impact on University of Southern Queensland, but it's not as much as other universities around the world. Queensland is really managing the COVID really well as a state. We haven't had active cases for quite a period of time, and for the community transmission. So we're back to office. We follow the Queensland rules on social distancing. So the safety is the first priority for University of Southern Queensland for staff and students. Any teaching smaller than 20 people will be on campus, and anything bigger than 20 people will be online. Historically, USQ is we have a very active online program for a long period of time, and we have nearly 30,000 students, and 70% of them are online. So really, we prepared for this for a long period of time. In terms of research, our research program, which is our flagships, like astronomy and like our material science, defense, and psychology and agriculture, all those programs are still can be conducted on campus or in the field. So that's really not because of the good management on COVID in the state of Queensland, and that enable our research activities is kept going. In terms of the international research collaboration, that's a major impact because we can't travel. Most of our academic staff can't attending the conference, visiting our partners, but we conducted a lot of online virtual workshops with our international partners, including in Asia, in China, Japan, in Thailand, and also in Europe, like Russia, UK, Germany, France, and in North America and Latin America. We are planning a couple of programs in Brazil, in Canada as well.
Yeah. So from that perspective, do you think universities overall have been adapting effectively to this pandemic? And we see it's coming basically in waves.
Yes, I think at the beginning, USQ, like everybody else, we were shocked, how we have to manage this process. But I think the couple of fundamental things is, first, USQ is always have a health and safety priority for the university. We have a health and safety plan, so that very effectively to manage at the beginning for staff all working from home. And the second thing is USQ is a very technical university. As I mentioned before, our academic staff, our students are used to virtual and online technology. So we can easily to shut down the university and to everybody working from home. So most are, for example, like in my office, all the staff have a laptop. They can dock in the office and they can also work from home. And then all our staff are used to the technology, used to the virtual meetings. So that really helped. And the second thing is the state of Queensland, and we had a very strong leadership in the state of Queensland. They have very well prepared plan for managing the COVID. So that also helped all the organizations. It helped we come back to work, helped the economy. So that's the fortunate part of the story. In terms of internationalization, I think we're not prepared for it. We're very shocked. A lot of programs like our NCP program, the New Colombo Plan, sending our student. We'll have to bring some student back home and sending some exchange student going back to their home country. So there's a lot of logistic problems. But after the first round of the panic and then reactive, and then we become more active to organizing, say, instead of a student going to another country or online, our exchange program, for example, like we can do online exchange with, say, for example, we send 3 students to University of Gießen in Germany, and then they're sending 5 to us. We also organized 2, one in sports science, one in paramedicine with Jilin University in China. So all of those things, we start become more proactive because we understand the pandemic are going to change the international research collaboration for a long period of time. So the border not going to open soon, therefore we have to prepare for the alternative. So we quickly to adopted the new technology, new format to working with our partners around the world.
Yeah, you have shown quite amazing resilience in many ways there. And I mean, we are in this new normal in this respect. And do you think this changed style of work for research and collaboration will become the ongoing normal, not just at this stage?
I think I agree. I think it's going to be a new normal. Certain things will change forever. Like the behavior of students to be more adapting. Some country in the past is not valued for the virtual or online learning. So I believe that's a second class of format for learning or getting degrees. But I think the pandemic really pushed every single university. It doesn't matter how well you ranked or how badly you ranked, how prepared or how not prepared, and you have to do virtual or online to delivery, the teaching and learning. So that really become a new norm to people to reassessing what is first class, how we're going to get out of more from this virtual learning method. So that's something is really, I think the technology with AI, with new technology, I think more and more people, the learners, going to be benefit from this new format. And it will also change the university's teaching learning model.
As responsible for international strategy, your own role and how you work on that strategy must have, you must have been very busy during this period.
Yes, that's right. Because internationalization for most of the Australian university is international student to study in Australia. One of the attractiveness is about the safety and also the environment of Australia. But because of the pandemic, the Australian government shut down the border. There's no intention for a short period of time going to open. We are still going through a trial called Secured Corridor Program. Currently, a state and Northern Territory and South Australia are going to first try to bring the international student back. However, I don't believe it's going to be, in the next 12 months, going to have a large number of international students to come on campus. So therefore, it's become very challenging for us and how we're going to interact with our potential international students, how we're going to recruit students, how we're going to make sure their learning experience is as similar as possible online with on campus. What's the learning outcome? How are we going to make sure they have a quality learning outcome and they've been supported? So that's the new challenge for not only myself, but for everybody in Australia, all the Australian universities.
If we look on the research aspect of the university, how have you seen this changing? And do you feel that you can maintain the broader impact of the research moving forward under this new normal?
I think there's a lot of challenge for Australian research community. The number one issue is the funding. Large majority of the university, 80% of the research output produced by Australian universities is very different with, say, Japan or Germany or Sweden or United States, because they have a large number of industry to doing research. And in Australia, 80% are produced by Australian universities. The funding funded by the Australian government was very limited for the research community in Australia. Large majority of the funding is coming from the international students. With the reducing international student numbers, particularly in the larger university, and they are struggle to fund properly for their research. Yesterday, and the Australian federal government just made an announcement about, in one-off, they're going to increase the research funding only for 1 year to plug the gap between the financial loss for all the university from the international education to support the international community in Australia. But I still remain my concern for the research funding in this country for the research community in Australia. So funding is the number one issue, I think, for the future. And the number two issue is about international research collaboration, because Australia is nearly 50% of our research output are international collaborated. For some area, you know, if you're social science or in the area you don't need participating or laboratory work, it might be okay to do virtual, but if you need experiment in another country, you need access to the facilities, you need to observing the new methodologies. So during the travel restriction, it's going to cause enormous distraction for international research collaboration. It really depends on the discipline. So that's the second issue. The third issue is because large majority of our talents, not only from the local, but international as well. So how are we going to attracting international talent into the Australian research community is another challenge, I guess, in post or during and post of pandemic, like COVID. So like everybody else, and Australian community is research community is facing challenge. But I think it's a very, this sector is a very strong. So I think we will go through fine, but it's have to overcome a lot of challenges.
It will be a challenging period, I guess. Just as a final question, if you look at universities and their role in broader society in this post-COVID world, what do you think the role is of academic institutions to play in both shaping the science and the research going forward out to the society? You briefly touched upon it earlier, but what is your opinion?
The research institution and research sector have a role to lead through this pandemic. We can't lack politics to lead during the pandemic, because there's a different voice you can see in the different community. people rather believe politics than science for treatment, for overcome all the challenges in the health area. So that's something wrong. So we, as a part of the research community, we need to put facts out and to lead the discussion to make sure people understand science is a key for treatment, for health, and for all those issues. And the second thing is we need to work collectively. Nobody can avoid, this is a international issue, not a national issue or institutional issue. So all the scientists around the world should work together. We should encourage more multilateralism rather than unilateralism. Nobody can do things by themselves and use for themselves and let everybody else in trouble. So I think that's the second things I think all of us as a research community, we need to work together. We need to embrace the multilateralism, to work together to, I call them global things, and we can target the global issues with the local solutions. We need to work with our community as well.
Thank you for that. And I think that resonates very well with many. We see both international collaboration increasing, but as well as nationalism in terms of who will be first in developing therapies and so forth. And this is actually just one world. So with that, I would like to, for this interview, to thank you very much for your insights from your region, as well as the global perspective you have also given in your comments. And thank you very much, Professor Yi.
Thank you.